Okay, time to do another video. I'm walking down to pay my phone bill and thought I would do my next video. The last video I ended by suggesting a bunch of questions I might address in my future videos, and after reviewing that list of questions that I left you all with, I realized probably the most important question, the most relevant question, I didn't include on there, and that question is, why the heck am I inclined to even think about hiking the Appalachian Trail? Well, actually, this all began over 20 years ago. I think it was 2002. At the time, I was executive director of an art center, and I one of the things we did there was we had an artist residency program, and it was at the end of the summer, and I was doing an exit interview of one of the artists that had spent the summer there doing a residency with us, and I asked her, you know, what are your future plans? What do you plan on doing? And she said she was planning on hiking the Appalachian Trail. And at that time, I'm not sure if I'd even heard of the Appalachian Trail and didn't really know hardly anything about it if I had even heard about it. But it sounded interesting to me, and I thought, that's something that you know, maybe I might want to do someday. But I didn't really think about it much after that. It was just something that, you know, was back in my memories. I had a lot of other things going on, and didn't really think about it that much. But then, once I started teaching, and I started traveling around the world and focusing on building global competencies within my students, making them or helping them to claim their global citizenship. One of the things I started doing, well, one of the trips that I eventually did was a trip to Peru, which included hiking the Inca Trail. And that was just a 4-day hike, and nothing too strenuous or anything. Well, the ascent up to Dead Moines Pass was you know, a bit of a challenge, but and there was the first time I did it, there was a little bit of inclement weather, some sleet and stuff like that, but it wasn't too challenging. But you know, was sleeping, spending the night in a tent, and you know, walking fairly significant distances, and yeah, it was intriguing, and I thought, yeah, I kind of like this hiking stuff. And then ultimately I ended up, you know, hiking, doing lots of little small, you know, day hikes all around the world. But some of the more significant hikes included hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro, and then more recently going to Patagonia and hiking the W Trek there. And I really got sort of like the hiking bug then, and that was sort of when I decided, you know what, that Appalachian Trail thing, that's something that I think I need to, you know, make a commitment to doing, you know. And by this time, you know, I was close enough to my retirement that I thought, well, I didn't really have to worry about setting aside a half a year to do this thing. So, you know, I had a bit of the bug because I just really found being out, especially when I was in Patagonia and walking, and just the opportunities to get out and reflect a little bit and think about things, and And just the opportunity for reflection was something that I really found appealing about the hiking process. So, yeah, that's when I pretty much said, all right, I think that this Appalachian Trail thing is going to happen. So then I started doing, before I retired, I thought, well, I can still start getting ready, and I started experimenting with some gear, doing a little bit of research, and thinking about doing some shakedown hikes, and just this last summer, I hiked the Camino de Santiago. That was over 500 miles, and that was a good way for me to get used to really hiking, some significant mileage day after day for an extended period of time. Still not the 2,200 miles of the Appalachian Trail, and wasn't through the wilderness like the Appalachian Trail will be, but it was a good sort of like a little bit of a shakedown for what it's going to be like for hiking day after day. But what really opened my eyes was a shakedown hike that I did about 9 months ago, I guess, of the Eagle Rock Loop, which is a trail in Arkansas, which is only about maybe 4.5-5 hour drive from Dallas. So I thought, let me do that, and it looked like that was going to be a trail that would emulate the AT pretty much in terms of hiking through similar terrain and stuff like that. But I've got a video on that, which I'll link if you want to watch that. But the video itself actually didn't really address the most significant part of this trip, because I ended up having to extend it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I ended up having to extend that hike an extra day because of some unexpected things. But anyway, I decided I was going to hike it, and so I would. There's some pretty significant water crossings on that trail, and if there's been a lot of rain and the water levels are high, they recommend that you don't try to ford those crossings, because it's just too dangerous. So I was keeping an eye on the weather, and I decided it's a relatively short hike, and in fact, you could do it in one day if you wanted to spend the whole day hiking. You could do that trek all in one day. But I decided I wanted to, get some experience using my gear, setting up my tent and all that. So I decided I would spend a couple of nights out there. So I was looking at the weather reports and trying to find a time when I wouldn't have to worry too much about the water being too high or inclement weather, that sort of thing. It's a relatively dry period. And but I was still teaching, so I was still pretty much confined to doing it during some time I had off, which was going to be spring break of last year. So I was watching the weather for what it was going to be like during spring break, and it looked like there was going to be a little break in the weather, and with relatively dry without any rain, and so the water levels should have been fairly low, and a 3-day period. And then so I decided to take off on a day where it was not calling for much, if any, rain on those days, but the fourth day, the date that I would have already been finished, they were forecasting some rain. So that sets the stage. I take off on that first day, and on the first day out, shortly after I had forded one of the water crossings, I saw a little notification on the trees, and you'll see this on the video if you watch the video, and it said prescribed burn, yada yada yada. And I looked at that and I thought, well, I don't smell smoke, don't see any smoke, I don't think I need to worry about it. As it turns out, that did ultimately impact my my hike. But anyway, so I'm out there. some other things happened. My water filter ended up freezing and stuff like that, but that's not so relevant. Well, a little bit relevant. So I get out there and end up spending a couple of nights out there, and I start heading toward, first of all, the loop. I decided to go clockwise. Coming from Dallas, there was a trailhead in the southwest corner of the loop. Going clockwise, the first couple of days, that's when I would see most of the water crossings. But then the last day would include most of the serious ascents up and down. In total, I think it might have been actually over 2,000 feet total ascent, because the trail itself, maybe not quite that much, but the trailhead that I hiked just to get to the loop that first day included, started with a hike up a ridge, which wasn't too bad, and then it was a hike down to the trail itself. And on the way down, I didn't recall it really being that significant of a hike down. But when you're walking down, it's a lot easier in terms of strain on your body. Although walking down can be, some stress on your knees, but in terms of your cardiovascular and all that stuff, not nearly as demanding as hiking uphill. So I'd walk down to get to the trail, and then if I'd have gone left, that's when I would have, hit all that serious up and down right away. But I went right to go clockwise, counterclockwise around the trail, and so those first 2 days, a lot of really fun water crossings, and in fact, the water was right at sort of what the limit would be for me to decide that I was going to do it. It was a little over, the reading was a little over 4 feet, and I had decided that 4.5 feet would sort of like be my limit in terms of what I felt comfortable doing. But anyway, and so as I said, on that second night, was it the second night? For the first time. I think it was the second night. It got down well into the 20s, and I wasn't expecting that, and I wasn't really protecting my water filter, and it froze, which makes it unreliable. So I wasn't able to filter any water. But I figured, well, I just got the next day's hike, and I'll be all right. So I took off on that third day, thinking that was going to be my last day, and I had gone less than half a mile. And all of a sudden I see some tape, these pink tapes blocking off the trail, and look over there, and there's a park ranger, and that prescribed burn that I had read about on day one was now occurring. And it was the trail back to my car, to the trailhead that would take me to my car, was blocked, and I wasn't going to be able to pass there until the next day. So I ended up hiking back to roughly where I had spent the night before, set up camp again, and was actually boiling my water since my filter wasn't working, and waited it out. It got a little dicey there because that evening I could not only see the smoke, but I could smell it really well. And I was a little concerned that that I had gotten good advice that staying where I was going to stay was going to be okay, but it was. So I took off the next morning, and it was already, you could tell that the rain was coming, and it didn't actually hit until about the time I'm starting up and down those serious hills, and those were some for me being, an inexperienced hiker and not really in that great a shape at the time. Those were some challenging up and down hills. And by the time I had gone pretty much through the burn area that had occurred the day before, it was raining. Okay, and here's, if you click on my video, that's where on the video I made documenting that hike, that's where I turned off my camera. And but it was actually after that the most significant things occurred. So let me tell you about that. I'm hiking, I'm getting exhausted, and eventually it starts raining pretty good, and it is cold. And I'm going up and down, and I'm getting tired, and I'm a little concerned because I'm pretty wet, and it's cold, and I'm tired, and I start thinking, boy, where's that trailhead? You know, I hope I don't get hypothermia, you know, before I make it to back to my car. And eventually I get to the trailhead, and I'm thinking, boy, just in time. I was pooped, I was wet, and I was cold, and wondering if I was going to make it. So I get to the trailhead, and I think, great. So, but I didn't recall, how much of a downhill I had walked to get to the trailhead, and now I was walking up it, and it was still raining, it was still cold, and I was still really tired, and I couldn't believe I kept walking up and up, and I think my heart rate was racing, and I was freezing and wet, and it seemed like, oh my gosh, am I on the right trail? Am I lost? I used my GPS. My GPS said, no, I'm right. But this walk up this ridge seems like a whole lot longer than it ever was down on that first day. And I was exhausted. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And at one point I even said to myself, should I try to find a place just to set up camp and get in my tent and get in my sleeping bag and warm up so I don't freeze to death and or die of exhaustion? And I'm looking around, and you know, going up a steep ridge like that, there simply was no place to set up a tent. So I kept walking, and I was sincerely concerned. And eventually I get to the top of that ridge where it's just a short hike down the other side of the ridge to get to my car. And the way I felt at that point, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to live. I'm going to survive. I did it. The feeling that I got from that was so invigorating. I mean, I never felt so alive, knowing that I was indeed alive. And I thought, oh man, I really felt like, you know, I had immersed myself, you know, in nature, and I'd done something, you know, challenging, and I succeeded. And I don't know, it just gave me such an invigorating feeling, you know, that I knew that this is something I wanted to do again. And, you know, I went ahead and got down to my car, and I was starving because I only brought enough food really for 3 days. Well, that's not true. I did bring a little extra, and I wasn't, but I was really, really hungry. And stopped at the first place I could to get some not very good food for me. I think it was like some fried chicken. It was a Colonel Sanders or something. And I just got like a big bucket of fried chicken and a big gigantic jug of iced tea and chowed down as I drove home back to Dallas. So, I mean, that experience of thinking, oh my God, I might die of hypothermia and exhaustion out here. And then, you know, the realization that, oh, I have made it. I don't know, I just can't really describe how invigorating that feeling was. And I can't wait to get out and, you know, put myself to the test like that again. And so that's really why I'm absolutely hooked on and committed to attempting this hike of the Appalachian Trail. Now, they say only about 20-25% of the people that hike the trail actually complete the whole 2,200 miles. So, you know, I plan on, you know, doing my best to make that happen. I plan on being, you know, part of that minority of the people that actually get from Springer Mountain to Mount Katahdin. But we'll see how it goes. But I don't know. Hopefully that sort of answers that question. Why? You know, why do I want to walk 2,200 miles? Why do I want to subject myself to inclement weather and mosquitoes and blisters and all that kind of stuff? That's the best I can do in terms of explaining why I will be leaving to hike the Appalachian Trail on March 12th, 2024, which is only, I think I said the other day how many days it was. It's either 80, I think it was around 85 days or something like that until my hike. So that means today would be 83 or 84 days. So there's the answer to that question. Stay tuned, and I'll be addressing some of those other questions and more in my coming videos. Oh, and I had an inquiry from someone I'd met on the Camino de Santiago, who's been following my blog, Jeff and Tina. Jeff replied to my last video and wanting to see if I could be talking a little bit more about my retirement in general, and in particular my relocation, my move to San Miguel de Allende. And so, yeah, I'm walking down towards the main area of town where I can pay my phone bill this morning, and you've been able to see this hike. But yeah, I will be talking a lot more about the things that are going on and my transition to being an official resident of San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. So, all right, until next time, happy trails.